today. You guys all here? See how many? 7. I think we are 11 or 12. So, but oh, there's still a minute. So let's give it a minute for everybody to join, right? So we're gonna start. I'm gonna start tonight to do the whole limb, right? The whole limb. So we're gonna see the proportions of the upper arm from the front and how the various segments of the arm relate to each other. We should have also time to look at in a certain detail to the specific proportion of the hand, right? Once we understand the proportion of the arm and hands, then next week we can start working on drawing the hand in different positions, in various positions, right? So let me get some art. Okay. So let's get started, right? So, so you draw along with me, and then we start to explore this proportion, right? So we decide the length of a segment of the arm, which is gonna be the humerus, right?
So this is Ritva. I see a very small window where you are drawing. Am I doing something wrong? I'm wondering.
You guys see that?
Now I switched it. I see it better. Okay.
You should be able to see that. You see that, huh? You see that my hands?
I see it now.
Okay. So so now this is the humerus, the bone of the upper arm, right? This bone in here. The length of the humerus. So what we're gonna do now is check the proportional relationships. Between the various segments of the arm, right? Okay, so that's the humerus. The forearm is going to have a length that is slightly shorter than the length of the upper arm. So what I want to do, I can block in the length of the upper arm, right? And then make it a little bit shorter. The specific proportions are going to be this. I'm going to be upper arm, the humerus is 1 3/8, when 1 is the measure of the head, right? One head. When I look at the body in its entirety, I use the head as unit of measure, and all the other segments of the body will be considered in terms of fraction of multiple of 1, which is whichever measure you decide to be. That's going to be the measure of the head, right? So the forearm, the length of the forearm is 1 1/8, meaning 1 head and 1/8 of an head, plus 1/8 of an head. The hand is going to be 7/8 of 1 head. So let's look at this a little bit more specifically, what this means, right? It means that the segments of the arm, but also the leg, they get shorter as they move away from the center. They move away from the torso, right? So this is also a So a progressive shortening and a tapering also of the width, the size of the limbs as they move away, right? So now I block in the arm as a little bit volumetrically, right? And I can draw this as a cylinder. I keep it very light as a cylinder like this, right? Here, I'm going to have the head of the humerus, right, up here. This is the cylinder of the upper arm. The forearm, I'm going to draw it now in supination, like this, right, in supination. So notice that when I get to the forearm, there is an angle between the humerus and the forearm. This angle is characteristic, is typical. So the arm will not, the volumes of the arm will not go down straight like this. They will not be along a straight line. They will be aligned at a different angle like this. And we're gonna see the specific angles of this segment, right? So when I draw now the forearm, I know now two things, that forearm should be shorter than the upper arm, and it should be at a slight angle compared to the upper arm, right? So I can draw the forearm now in two ways. I could draw it thinking of a 2x4. So I think of this as a cylinder, right? And think of this as a 2x4, right? And I'm going to eventually attach, add to the 2x4 an oval in form like this, right? And that's the upper arm. Later, I'm going to show you how to simplify this, how to make it more expedite. But now we want to start paying attention to these specific dominant volume, right? So the hand is going to be 7/8, right? Which means 7/8 of one hand, which means that the hand is never as big or bigger than the head, right? So knowing this, when I draw a figure in my drawing that maybe is like this, right? Then I want to make sure that the head of my figure is always bigger than the hand. If I make the hand way too small or way too big, that's not good. So the advantage of this is that you conceptualize your drawing, meaning you already know that certain proportions are true 99% of the population. Nobody has the hands bigger than the head, not even Andre the Giant. Did you see Andre the Giant? The hand of Andre the Giant, they're like this, right? Still, his hands are not as big as his head, which was humongous, right? So, or for example, when we look at the feet, right? The feet are going to be always either the same length of the head or a little bit bigger. So when I have the whole figure standing and I see hands, maybe hands like this, right? And feet of the figure, maybe seen from the side, I want to make sure that this hand in here, measure whether it's here or here, wherever that is not as big as the hand, or too small, meaning it will occupy pretty much from the chin to the hairline, more or less, right? More or less. So feet, the same thing. I want to look at the feet of my figure. Compare them with the head and see if that those two measurements relate properly to each other, right? So this is the practical use of the proportional relationships, right? So now if I understand this, all the parts of the body will be proportionally related in the correct way. So the hand is now, imagine a paddle, right? Imagine a paddle like this. And as seen in supination like this, I want to see this volume here, which is called tenor eminence. We're going to look at it later on. Kind of something like that is over the flat volume of the palm of the hand, right? The body of the hand, right? So now, another way I could draw the forearm, right, is this. I can draw, I can draw the upper arm like this, right? When I am at this point in here, I know now that this measurement here should be slightly shorter than, so this segment should be slightly longer, sorry, than this. So I repeat this measurement, make it a little bit shorter. Then instead of drawing a 2x4 with then layer and all on it, I can already start drawing a form here that is more ovoidal and then flatten it, right? Flatten it like this, making it squares, because this area here is somehow more square. See that, a little bit more square. But this area here is some truncated cone, right? So I can draw this already as a composite form made up of a conical shape and a 2x4. And then the hand, right? So now let's look at the skeleton, right? And then we're gonna mount the skeleton. So let's repeat it. We have the measurement here. I'm gonna block in the head of the humerus. Actually, I'm gonna draw it with blue so we can see, or blue-gray, we can see a better difference between the muscular layers and the skeletal layers, right? The skeletal structure. Right? So here I have the head of the humerus. The shaft of the humerus is going to be slightly off-center in relation to the center of the head of the humerus, right? Because this portion here has to go into the clavicle, so you need some space for this to move, right? Interspacing here. Elbow here, right? The shaft of the humerus is down fairly straight with some bumps, but overall it's a straight bone, right? And at the elbow, remember this is called carrying angle, right? This is carrying angle. So therefore, at this point in here, at the elbow, the distal portion of the humerus here is going to be, the articular face of the humerus here is going to be slightly at an angle. And now I can block in here the condyles and epicondyles, right? Let me show you what they are. So see, this is a slight at an angle, right? See this angle here, the angle of the two condyles. So this is called condyle, and this is called trochlea. But for our convenience, we're gonna call both of them condyles because it's fine, it still works, right? But this is going to be the lateral condyle, the one on the outside, and this is going to be the medial condyle on the inside, all right? So I'm gonna write all these names down. So now, if this is the condyle, right, this bump is called epicondyle and lateral epicondyle. This bump is called medial epicondyle. So why am I bringing so much attention to this? It's because in this area here and along this blade of bone in here, muscle attach. So we want to understand where the muscle of the forearm originates because it will help us in better understanding the forms of the forearm, right? So now here I have the this more pronounced epicondyle here, right? This is the lateral epicondyle, this is the medial epicondyle. Here is a kind of marble, right? And here is a, those BB guns, the lead BB guns, like that, kind of like that, right? But much bigger, right? Much bigger. So let's write names now, right? So condyle and epicondyle. So the condyle is this, the articular part of the extremity, right? Of the condyle, it's a bump on top of a bump. If this is a bump, this is a bump on top of a bump, right? So this is the epicondyle, right? Lateral. So now, if you imagine that there's the axis here of the humerus goes straight through the shaft of the humerus, right? When I get at the point in here of the medial epicondyle, this shaft, this line does not continue straight, but it goes out at an angle like this. A slight angle. See that? Slight angle. See this, right? This is the axis, and this axis will, from the humerus, will go straight down like this, and this move to the side. So the forearm is going to be at an angle like this, and now here I have directly connected with the, so these are lateral condyle and lateral epicondyle. These are the medial condyle and epicondyle. Okay, so so now, in direct continuation with the medial epicondyle, I have the ulna, right? So this is the ulna. The ulna is basically this bump in here that you see is this bump in here is the olecranon, right? So the ulna is tightly connected with, articulated with the humerus at the elbow here. And basically, it can do only flexion and extension because it looks like a mechanic tool. See how tight it is, right? So this goes to only flexion and extension. The radius instead is lateral, right? And as a way to remember, if the radius which size it connects, it's on the side of the thumb. So it's the radius, and this is the ulna, right, on the pinky side. And the ulna has this little bump, right? This is the end of the ulna that we have here, all, right? This little bump in here is the very end of the ulna, this bump in here, right? Which for some reason tend to be a little bit more pronounced in women, tend to be more visible in women than in men, right? So now we go down with the ulna like this. The ulna starts thick and ends thin, with a little bit of a bump, right? And a little bit of a pointy thing in here, see that, which is called styloid process, from stylus, on pencil, right? Like the point of a pencil, right? So, ulna, radius, humerus, right? So now here I have now the radius starting like this, right? Let's see the difference of the radius, internal articulation, right? So if the ulna is tightly connected with the radius and only does flexion and extension, right? So flexion reduces the angle between the two limbs, right? This angle here is reduced. Extension, it widens the angle between the two limbs interested. That's how you tell, right? Flexion reduces the angle. Extension makes the angle bigger, right? So, and then there is hyperextension when you move back even more like this, right? Hyperextension, but that's another thing. So now the radius will, see if I can get this a little bit more visible, right? Need to move this down. Okay, so the radius will flex, extend together with the ulna, but also pronate and supinate, right? So how do I remember supination, pronation? Imagine you have a cup of soup like this, right? Now you hold the soup, and then when you go in pronation, you spill the soup. You don't have it anymore. So supination, you got the soup, and then spill, you don't have the soup. That's pronation, right? So so now the radius radiates around the ulna, right? Notice one thing. Notice how the axis of the ulna, as the forearm goes from supination to pronation, the axis of the ulna does not move an inch. It's like an axis, actually acts like an axis, see that? And the forearm moves around it like this, right? That radiates. So notice another thing, that when I am in supination, we have arms out like this, right, around my body. The thumb is going to be the outside, the radius on the outside. When I go in pronation, right, now the thumb is on the inside, the radius here is on the inside, but the radius here is always on the outside. It cannot move from here. That's the joint. So this cannot move because it would dislocate if it moves, right? So now if I want to understand the position of the muscle of the forearm, because it will have an influence on the external form, I can remember that the thumb, when the bones of forearm are parallel, the thumb is on the outside. When the thumbs are on the inside, then I have the crossing of the bone, and that will change the volume of the forearm, right? So let's see now. Let's put in the radius, right? So the radius will start thin, right? And then widens up, ends up, and ends thick. But also another thing, so thick, thin is the ulna, thin, thick is the radius, but also the two bones, this one starts higher. The ulna starts higher and ends up higher. The ulna, sorry, the radius instead starts lower and ends up lower, right? So they are going to be not perfectly parallel, but going to be like this, right? Like that. So now here I have the hand, right? And the hand is mostly articulated with the radius, if not completely at all, right? Maybe I left too much space in here. I draw my paddle, and then I block in the volume, the base of the thumb, and the thumb here going over the paddle, right? So the hand is going to be divided in various segments. So let's look at the hand here. We're going to have in the palm of the hand, we have the carpal bones and the metacarpal bones, right? Carpus, metacarpus. And the fingers are going to be divided in phalanxes, right? Oh, I'm sorry, guys, my brothers. They are going to be divided in segments. So proximal phalanx, medial phalanx, distal phalanx, okay? So the one close to the hand, the one in the middle, and the one distal. So notice also if the internal subdivision of the space, right? You see that if I take the whole length of the palm, right, that is made up of the metacarpal bone and the carpal bone, the portion occupied by the carpus, by the carpal bone, is about 1/3 of the total length of the hand. So now, in here, once I block the hand, right? These are also proportional relationship, right? If I block the hands in here, once I decide the length of the palm, then of this length, 1/3 is going to be occupied by the carpal bone and the rest by the metacarpal bone. Right? So this is the carpus and this is the metacarpus, right? And then of course the digits, right? Okay, so now we're gonna get more into the detail of the proportion of the hand a little bit later on, right? So let's get now to the dominant volumes of the forearm, right? Actually, the whole arm, we can look at the muscle of the whole arm, right? Okay, we repeat this again, right? So we get to really understand all the specific proportion, right? I'll try to maintain this measurement so it's easier. Add the humerus, remember a little bit offset compared to the center. Shaft of the humerus, right? And then slightly at an angle, the articular plane of the elbow, the widening of the extremity of the humerus here, where I have the lateral epicondyle and the medial epicondyle. Medial epicondyle is bumpy, right? It kind of comes out with a more pronounced point here. And then I'm going to have here the condyles, the lateral condyle and the medial condyle. And in continuation with the axis of the humerus, but at a slight angle, I have the ulna, and the ulna is going to be slightly shorter than the humerus, right? And then on the side, laterally, the radius, which is going to be slightly wider at the end than the ulna, and then the hand, right? So now let's block in the muscles as main line, just look at the line, the direction of the lines of the muscle, and then we block in the form, the volume, right? So here I have, but to do this, I want to include the scapula and a little bit of the rib cage, right? So here I have the scapula, right? Scapula is going to be a little bit longer than the mid length, the midpoint of the humerus, right? And maybe I made it too big. Yeah, a little bit too short. I'm gonna make it a little bit shorter, right? And then starting from above the top of the head of the humerus, I have the acromion, that's part of the scapula. We're gonna see when we draw the scapula from behind. But it's the end of the collarbone, right? The collarbone connects with the scapula here. And then that's the clavicle, the collarbone right here. That ends up at the top of the sternum here, right? So now next to the head of the humerus here, and just below the clavicle here, I have the coracoid process, a little bump here. It's called coracoid process, right? And we're going to see these again later. Now we just need to draw a very essential skeleton of the arm, right? So now let's find more landmarks here. In the humerus here, on the outside of the humerus, there's a little bit of a groove here. See this groove here, right? This groove here is because the tendon of the bicep goes here like this, down like this, right? And eventually the pectoralis will go over like this, right? This tendon and pectoralis go over like this. But the tendon of the bicep goes from the clavicle to over the head of the humerus, down here like this, and from here it will go down to this bump in here in the radius, down like this, right? To this bump in here. So this is an important structure because it helped me in positioning the bicep, right? The bicep groove here. There's a widening of the humerus here, half in the center, right? And the deltoid ends kind of halfway down the length of the humerus. We're gonna see it later on with more precision, right? Let's see if I can get it. There you go, a little bit bigger, right? So now, go back to this. The radius, find the radius right here, and a little bit below the capitulum, this little drum-like structure, this little button here, right? There is this bump in here. This bump in here is called radial tuberosity, or tuberosity of the radius, right? Or bicep tuberosity. We're gonna pick one, radial tuberosity. So tuberosity comes from what gives, it means bump, right? And it gives the name to potato, tuber, right? So now I have here about an inch or so below, 1 inch or 2 inches below the joint in here, I have this radial tuberosity. And next to this bump in here, a little bit higher here, right? I have a rough surface on the ulna, right? Here. This is a triangular shape. See that film here? That is another muscle attached. So let's start now with these two muscles of the arm, right? And draw them with lines, and later we're gonna give them volume, right? So the biceps brachii has two heads. Bicep means two heads, right? Two-headed. One starts from the coracoid process. I mentioned the coracoid process here. Coracoid process here. I'm going to show you what this is, right? Because I had a skeleton. All right. So just to give you a better idea, right? So the head of the humerus is going to be here, like this, right? In contact with this. Actually, let me take this out. So it's going to become more clear, right? Here. The head of the humerus is here. This is the coracoid process. See that? Coracoid process. This is the clavicle, right? Collarbone. The clavicle connects with the acromion, which is part of the scapula. See that? So the end of the shoulder, the very end of the shoulder, you feel on your shoulder a flat surface. That flat first surface at the very end is not the collarbone, is part of the scapula. That it comes from the back, right? And comes forward like this. And look how they connect. Beautiful, right? They connect like this. So just come to the back, connect with the clavicle, and then move down to the sternum. So, the bicep, one head of the bicep, the long head of the bicep, start from here, just above the articular face of the scapula, here. The other head starts from here. So, one head will do this, from here sorry, my hand is in the middle, right? From here, turns, goes here, and goes down to the arm. The arm instead, the short head starts from here, comes down like this, and will connect with the long head, like that. So I have these two heads, right? These two heads, this goes here, of the bicep. They go down to this point in here, right? So let's look at the muscle before we do this. And it's the brachialis, right? So the brachialis, and I don't need to show you on the skeleton. The brachialis is under the bicep, and it originates from the inferior half of the anterior portion of the humerus, and it goes here to the tuberosity of the ulna. Right. The bicep instead start, as we've seen, basically behind the coracoid process is the long head that comes out like this, right here, goes into that groove, right? And from here goes to the head, to the little radial tuberosity here, right? Then the short head from here merges with the long, and now I have the bicep, right? So this is just schematic. Later we're gonna do it in a more realistic way, right? So now let's look now at the muscle of the forearm, and we can divide them in these muscles in here. Let me show you. These muscles in here are flexor. They flex the hand and fingers, right? All these muscles here are flexors. When I turn the arm like this muscle in here extend the hand, right? So these extend the hand and the fingers, right? When I do this, I see the little wavy thing in here because now I am extending the fingers. So flexors on the front, extensors on the back. In the middle here, there is a muscle. See that muscle in here, right? This muscle in here is called brachioradialis. So this muscle in here is a flexor, but not of the hand. It's the flexor of the forearm. Right? If I lift my arm like this, it comes up like that, right? So let's see the difference. If I have here now, these are the three main muscular groups that we want to describe in the forearm, right? So flexors, extensors of hand and fingers, right? And the brachioradialis, which is a flexor of the forearm, right? So let's look at the flexors of the hand and fingers, right? So I want to give you a method to help you remember all of these muscle names, right? So the muscles names are based on the very pragmatic, right? They tell what the muscle looks like or what the muscle does or where the muscle is, right? So basic meaning origin and insertion. So let's look now at a detail of the forearm here like this, right? And let's start with the flexors of the hand and fingers, or flexors of carpus, because I'm going to limit the analysis only to the superficial muscle. The forearm has 28 muscle, I think, something like that. There's a lot of muscles. We want to focus only now, in this case, only in the superficial, because we get into the deep muscle, it will take forever to do it. So let's just know that there are 2 layers of flexor of the fingers, and those are deep, right? The flexor of the fingers are deep and superficial. We're not going to worry about them today. We're going to worry only about this because these are superficial. We see them. So when I do this, right? When I do this, I see the muscle moving, and mostly what I see, some reflection of the finger, but mostly what I see when I move this is all the flexion of the hand, right? The hand like this, right? So these muscles start from this area here, from the medial epicondyle, right? The first muscle starts from here and it goes down diagonally like this, halfway down to the side, inside of the radius. And this is the exception. This is not the flexor, right? So I just finished telling you this is the flexor, but this is not the flexor. This muscle in here is called pronator teres, right? Which means the round pronator, meaning this muscle in here connect with the radius. As this pulls, it turns the hand. It turns the hand like this. Because we have seen before how the radius, imagine I have a muscle here, right? It goes from here to here, right? It goes from here to here, right? So now, when this muscle pulls, right, this pronates, right? Pronates like that. I pull this, and so if I had a little rope, I don't have it. I would just, you would see how this, by pulling this, I pronate the arm. So it's called pronator teres, right? Now from here, I have a muscle that goes from this point in here down to the carpus. Like this, right? So now let's see. Let's try to give it a name, right? I want you to let's figure out the name together, because then that helps later on to understand all the other, how the name of the muscle are structured. So we've seen that this side of the muscles here are flexors, right? So flexor of what? Of the carpus, right? Meaning it will do this. It will bring the carpus in like this, right? Flexor of the carpus, you say carpi, right? It means of the carpus. And it goes through across the radius. See that? It goes across the radius. So flexor carpi radialis. Right? Make sense? Or I can also call it FCR, right? Flexor carpi radialis. Now, on the other side here, I have another muscle that goes from here, right, down to the carpus on the other extremity, on the pinky side, and we'll do this. Right? So now I'm going to ask you, what do I call this? What do I call this muscle in here? So let's go to the actual action, right? What's the action of this group of muscles we are analyzing now?
A flexor.
Yeah, right. So we have the flexor, right? So flexor.
Ulna.
Yeah, but before that, there is now flexor of
Carpi.
what?
Carpi.
Carpi. Yeah.
Ulna.
Beautiful. That's it. You got it, right? Flexor carpi ulnaris. That explains it, right? Makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I was telling you, we got to recognize, remember, where is the radius, where is the ulna? Because then it show, remember, the thumb side is some of the radius, and the pinky side is the ulna. Because then I can, it all come together. I can better understand what muscle am I looking at. When I look at this muscle in here, which is right on the side here, right? And past this, there is a line. This line here is the ulna, right? So I gotta shave my arms. So with this here, see this bump in here, this is the ulna. But this division here, that goes from the olecranon up to the ulna here, the ulna is the division between the flexors and the extensors. Make sense? So when you see this bone in here, on the back, on the side of the back of the hand, I have the extensors. Past this bone in here, these are all flexors. So because this is now the muscle on the side, just below the ulna, right? So it's a flexor, and it's on the side of the ulna. So I know that that is the flexor carpi ulnaris. Makes sense? So in the middle, this is another muscle, right? In the muscle here, and it goes from the same spot, like they all start from this spot in here. I notice one thing, that this group of muscle here starts below the peak of the condyle, right? Of the medial epicondyle. Start below the peak in here, right? That's an important distinction because we're gonna see later on what happens in terms of overall form of the forearm, right? Now, from here, in between these two guys, I have another muscle that goes down like this, and it goes to the center of the hand, but it does not go to the bone. It stays superficial over the muscles of the palm of the hand on a thick fascia, thick tendinous fascia, aponeurotic fascia. And this muscle here is this. This is the tendon, is right in the middle. When you do this, you oppose your thumb. I don't think, not yet, even with that, right? You have this muscle, this tendon popping up. That tendon is the tendon on, and I give you the name of this because you're not gonna get it. It's not deductible like the other one. It's called palmaris longus. So the long muscle that goes to the palm of the hand, right? Palmaris longus. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is the superficial muscle that I see, right? Below these 3 muscles in here, I have 2 more layers of deep muscles, the flexor of the fingers, which we're not going to get into today. Now, from here, right, from this side in here like this, so see how this portion, the lateral part of the humerus, is get down to a thin blade in here, kind of widens, goes out like that. It basically increases the surface for muscle to attach on it. So this blade starts about it's about, the length is about 1/3 of the total length of the humerus, right? So this is about 1/3. At the upper third in here, I have the brachioradialis. This is the brachioradialis, right? And the brachioradialis start therefore from, find the lower third here at the upper third. From here, the brachioradialis goes over the joint here like this, and attaches here on the radius, therefore the name, right? So brachii means arm, right? So it goes from the arm to the radius, so brachioradialis, right? And it goes here. So as we have seen before, now we're going to show you a little bit of a diagram of the flexor. So this muscle here, the brachioradialis, right? Is a flexor of the forearm, is a flexor of the forearm, right? So now, let's look at a quick diagram of the flexor of the arm, and then we move on, right? So imagine this. This is the humerus, right? This is the shaft of the humerus. This is the forearm, like this, right? And that's the hand, right? The bicep brachii will do this from here, meaning from the bicep brachii start from the scapula, right? And you have two heads, they go here. Here like this, right? The brachialis start from here and goes here. And the brachioradialis are from the outside, it goes down like that. You see how you have this kind of beautiful, I mean, I wouldn't call it redundance, but because one muscle goes diagonally in like this, the other muscle goes diagonally out, so the two muscles, brachialis and bicep, are slightly crossed like this, right? And plus you have another muscle here that flexes also, but mostly it's easy to see when you do this, when you turn the arm. So bicep is pulling in more on the outside like this, right? The brachialis more on the inside like this, and the brachioradialis here, up like this. So you have all this specialization of the various muscle, but these are all flexors, right? So let's look now at the external volume. We get into the morphology, like the more than the functionality and the structural aspect of this muscle. And we'll see how the forms of the forearm change as we go from supination to pronation, right? And then we're going to look at the hand a little bit later on. Guys, is this clear? You need a minute to finish copying?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
Could we have a minute?
Yeah, no problem. I'll be back in a second. Okay, got it? You guys okay?
Yes, good.
Okay. So this is one, right? Let's see now let's use the same dimensions so we maintain a certain coherence. So I'm going to redraw this, but now we're going to put the volume of the muscle over it, right? And then after this, we're going to move on to the hand, the structure of the hand. So we see various structural aspects of the upper limb, right? So I'm going to block in now. It's going to be a sequence from supination to pronation, right? Blocking the shaft of the humerus here. maintaining an angle, right? An angle at the joint here like this, and then take the, what's going on? Okay, and then now take this length in here, put it down slightly at an angle, right? But I can block in the same length, but then I make it a little bit shorter, like that, right? I shorten it out a little bit. So now here, I can also do this. I can also already do the what I showed you before, that general form for the forearm, right here like this, starting with a conical section form and end up with a 2x4. This can also be already a cylindrical shape that end up with the sphere of the shoulder, right? Is that sufficient? I don't want it to be too dark because I want to go over it, right? But see, once we understand the dimension, we can move already to the next step. And the measurements are going to be in our head. We don't need to visualize them all the time, right? So now, the forearm, if I look at the hand in relation to the forearm, let me show you. I look at the hand, right? And then I see that it gets kind of, you know, see, not very close to the elbow, but pretty close to the elbow, right? So if I look at the length of the forearm, I say, oh, well, maybe it's here, right? Maybe it's here. So I take this measurement in here, and then I move it down, and now I have the length of the arm. So now, clearly there are going to be differences from person to person, right? So some people are going to have longer arms or shorter arms, right? Bigger hands, shorter hands. But overall, statistically, we're going to have pretty much similar proportional relationships, right? Proportional relationships. There's some people that have shorter arms, maybe, or longer legs, right? You can appreciate those. You measure them by relating all the various segments to each other. We can look at this later when we maybe apply this to the practice of drawing. Right? So now I need the clavicle. So now here we have the clavicle. I can be acromion here, the clavicle here, right? And now I know that this is the sternum, right? Sternum is going to be here, more or less, right? Because I want to block in also the pectoralis. So let's start with the bicep, right? So the bicep, and for now I'm going to soften up the humerus because I used it to establish the length of the upper arm. I don't need it anymore. I'm going to soften it up, and now I have these cylindrical forms, right? Like this. So the bicep is going to be go from this point in here, right? This point in here, meaning not at the center. The bicep is not going to go down straight from the center of the arm, but it's going to be slightly at an angle along the shaft of the upper arm, slightly at an angle, right? And it goes here. So I mean, you start from slightly on the inside and ends up slightly on the outside on the radius. Make sense? So the axis of the bicep is slightly at an angle in relation to the right. Now this is the volume, right, of the bicep. Actually, I can color it red. Sorry, guys, I will forget to turn off the. I'm gonna put it in the airplane mode. All right. Okay, so so now this is the bicep now, right? The fusiform shape, and here the bicep has the division, or the two heads, that eventually they will come together here as they go down to the radius, right? I can give it a little bit of volume, a little bit, right? And actually, in fact, maybe I should make this a little bit thinner. I'm sorry. I make this a little bit thinner because it's tendon. You hear tendon, it's gonna be thinner and builds up the volume here, because at this point we'll be under the pectoralis, right? Then next we can block in the block in the pectoralis, right? So the pectoralis will go from take the clavicle, the lower margin of the clavicle, and divide it into half. It will the pectoralis occupy a little bit more than half of that. So it goes close to the coracoid process here, but it does not cover the coracoid process. So this is start from here and goes along the lower margin of the clavicle here, along the sternum and the ribs here, down the sternum, and then when we get to the end of the sternum, about the sixth rib, it goes out like this onto the sixth rib. So you create a C, right, like that. So now the point of insertion is going to be on the side of the humerus, a little bit below the head of the humerus. So here and here, more or less, right? Now what I do is this: I go from the high point of the point of origin of the pectoralis to the low point of insertion here, right? And then now from the low point of origin to the high point of insertion, because the pectoralis will twist on itself. And that's an easy way for replicating that twist. You got that? You got it, guys?
Not really.
I'm gonna do it again on a little. Ask me if you don't get it, because you know I can do it easily. It's not. So imagine this. Now I'm gonna do just the skeleton, right? So this is the humerus, right? Humerus here. This is the clavicle. This is the rib cage, right? And this is the sternum. Very barbaric, very quick, but that's what it is, right? So now, just the pectoralis, The pectoralis will start from the lower margin of the clavicle, along the sternum, and down on the sixth rib, right here, makes a C. It's the point of origin, the point of insertion, right? The point of insertion, so the point of origin, the point of insertion is said is here on the side of the humerus here, right? But the fibers will twist. Starting from here, they kind of twist like this. It's gonna become more evident later when I do all the fibers, right? So in order to do this synthetically, as render it with its essential structure, I simply switch the high point of the origin with the low point of insertion, and then the low point of origin with the high point of insertion. That's it. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So now what I can do, I can create segments of the pectoralis more easily. So from here now I have the upper portion of the pectoralis is going to the corner of the clavicle here, right? This, right? And this is a segment that lifts the arm. There is a central segment in here, right? That goes to the sternum. And then I can subdivide the segment in further segment. And the lower portion that goes to the ribs is called abdominal portion. And overall, see if I can get it darker so we can see it a little bit more distinctly, right? Overall, I have a spiraling of these fibers, right? So this segment here is the one on top of all the other segment. This is going to be just below that. This is going to be just below that, right? Going under like that, right? This is going to go now under here. In fact, now I need to erase a little bit of the schematic because, again, it was schematic. So
I don't understand where it attaches on the top of. Is it on the top of a bicep or where?
No, on the side of the humerus, right? So here.
Okay.
So this is the bicep, right?
Yeah.
And this is the tendon of the pectoralis, goes over it.
Yes.
So it will so in the end, you have the tendon of the bicep coming out from under the pectoralis. So I'm gonna render it a little bit more now so you can see that, right? So attaches onto the humerus, right? So now here is the bicep that goes under the pectoralis here. Now, these are the fibers of the pectoralis kind of overlapping, see each other. See that? See the kind of overlap? Right? So if I want to draw a section here, I'm gonna have this. Makes sense. It kind of twist, right? That's a typical arrangement of the fibers of the pectoralis, right? So now, this is attached onto the humerus. So this is the humerus, right? This is the humerus here. Now over here, over the shoulder, I have the deltoid. So the deltoid will cover the coracoid process. Remember the coracoid process, this little bump. So if you want to identify the coracoid process, put your hand on your chest like this and reach for the lower margin of the collarbone, right? And then you go slice to the side, to the side, to the side until you end up, this is depression. There's a little kind of knocking here, right? Depression. If you keep pushing out toward the outside, you feel a bone there in that depression. You feel that? A little bone. That's the coracoid process. So you got in contact with your inner coracoid. That's the coracoid process, right? So why do I care about that? Because that is where one hand of the bicep begins. So if I look at the arm like this, and I see that from here, right? From here, I go a lot down toward the arm, I see that that follows pretty much the inside of bicep, the inside of the bicep, right? So now, Now the deltoid starts from the coracoid, covers the coracoid here. Actually, I need a softer pencil. Covers the coracoid here, right? And goes a little bit over the tendon of the pectoralis and goes down about halfway the total length of the upper arm, disappears behind the volume of the bicep here. So this now is the deltoid, right? So at this point in here, there's a little bit of a triangular space here. That's the depression I was telling you about, right? There's a little depression, and that is called deltopectoral triangle. So why do I care about that? Again, because when you see this point in here, you know quite a few things. So that little depression here, you're gonna see in the model, it tells you where the shoulders begin. And where the shoulder begin, it changes angle. This is a different angle. So if I look at the rib cage from above, like this, right? This is the rib cage, right? This is the head, and this is the nose. The shoulder are gonna be here like this, right? Pectoralis here, shoulder. So that is where you have this change of angle, because the pectoralis goes in and the shoulder goes out, in and this goes out. So that denotes a change in the surface of the rib cage, right? So now on the side here, I have just below the deltoid here, under the bicep, I see only a little bit. I have the brachialis, right? The brachialis here that starts halfway down the length of the humerus and is visible only partially because it's covered by the bicep, right? But the tendon of the bicep goes here toward the radius, but the tendon of the brachialis goes toward the ulna, like that, right? So let's write the name, right? Let's write a little bit of names here. So deltoid, pectoralis major, bicep brachii, brachialis, so we're gonna put arrows, right? So we know here, deltopectoral triangle here, right? Under here, just next to the deltopectoral triangle, I have the head, sorry, the coracoid process, right? So deltoid, brachialis here, right? And here, brachialis is visible on both sides here, and bicep brachii here, right? So sometimes if you see models that are very, very lean, you're going to, and maybe they are moving the arms, you know, you're going to see that here, at this point here, just below the tendon of the pectoralis, there is a notch, and that notch is visible up here. That notch is the division between the two heads of the bicep, right? So now, move on to the lower part of the arm, and we want to describe the flexors of the hand, right? And I'm gonna color them two different colors so we can distinguish them a little bit more clearly, right? So the flexors of the hand, we have seen that they start, this is the condyle, the medial epicondyle, so here, the medial epicondyle here, which is this bump that we feel here inside, this bump in here, right? This bump, the bone that we feel here, that when we hit something, you know, like a corner of a table or something, hurts so much is the nerve that goes down in there, right? And, but this pokes out like this, right? And this muscle start just below that epicondyle here. And they are going to the hand. Remember, they go down to the hand, and these are the flexor carpi radialis, flexor carpi ulnaris, pronator teres, and then palmaris longus. So together as a group, they create a volume. They start from here and goes over the tendon of the brachialis, here down like this. And down like this, right? So this is the volume of the flexors of the hand and fingers together, right? So now, is the tendons, right? As a group, right? So these tendons in here will go through tunnel, right? So see that, this two little pointing here. Let's see if we can be better like this, right? That's the carpal tunnel, right? That's the carpal tunnel. So the tendon goes through here like this, right? Then on the fingers, the flexor, etc. So they are really packed. They're really packed together in here. And imagine now, packed like this, they kind of chafe, right? They chafe when you use them too much. That will give you the irritation of the carpal tunnel, etc. So, so now all these tendons in here will be packed here, right? Going to the hand, right? Going down to the hand like that. Almost visible here. So now, on the side here instead, I have the brachioradialis. The brachioradialis is not connected with the hand, but it's connected with the radius, right? Brachioradialis, right here. This is the bumping here of the radius, right? So the brachioradialis will start, as we have seen before in that diagram that I showed you here, right? It starts at the lower third of the length of the humerus and goes to the radius. So it does this. Behind the brachialis, starting here, and then appears in here, and then develop a volume up here, and then it goes down to the radius, and inside goes over the tendon of the bicep, and then next contiguous to the flexor. This is the brachioradialis. So now, notice one thing. Notice that because this muscle here starts higher on the humerus, start higher up here, and this starts lower, right? The peak of these two muscular groups are not at the same level, right? That's the typical rhythm. That's a typical orientation of the peaks of the muscle of the forearm, right? Think also the equivalent would be the calves, right? If you look at the calves have quite interesting peaks, but those peaks are not at the same level. So here, right, the tricep visible, and now this is the arm in supination, right? And I'm going to now move on to the arm in a position in between supination and pronation, like this, because I want to show you how the movement from supination to pronation affects the external forms of the forearm, and you can better understand the forms in the model when the model is moving, etc., right, on a certain pose. So let's start here. A quick way of reviewing this is skeleton. Humerus, joint, ulna, radius, hand. Radius and ulna are parallel in supination. Right, now they are parallel, right? Now, let's see what happened when we move in between, right? In between. So let's try to speed up now, right? A little bit, because all these diagrams that I showed you are not the way you're going to draw, but they are to make you notice specific volumetric characteristics. Once you have drawn them a few times like this, once you have understood them, you don't need to draw these all the time like this. You can start blocking in your form a little more loosely. Again, like I showed before, I have the upper arm here, right here. And I'm thinking, okay, then the forearm is going to go down like this, right here. And the hand is going to be, now the hand is going to be, actually, no, I want to do it a little bit straighter, because as I move this in, the arm is not going to be as straight, right? So I apologize here, right? And then this arm now is going to be slightly straighter, but now the hand is going to be as seen from this side here, like this, right? So let's go in again with the various volume, right? So this is sufficient, right? This is sufficient. This is when when you sketch the model quickly, you block in essential lines. This exactly the same thing. Blocking essential. These lines are informed, meaning what you stop here, because then you know that this gives you a measurement that you can inform this measurement in here, that can inform this measurement in here, right? So now, let's block in the bicep, right? Again, slide at an angle. And then let's block in the deltoid here, right? Going over the head, the humerus here, that's the clavicle. And now the pectoralis, right? With its various segments, right? And now, I refine it a little bit. Brachialis. So now, what happens in here is that I have here, this is the condyle, right? This is the condyle. So with the arm like this, I still see the flexor. This is all the flexor, right? This is all the flexor of the arm. So I see the flexor here, right? They go, where do they go? They go to the palm of the hand. So these are the tendon flexor. Right now I see them from the side, right? It's not my arm, I'm using a body double. Paying this guy, right? You know how they do in the movies, right? Okay, so so this is going to be now the volume of the flexor, but before I define this, I want to block in the volume of the brachioradialis, because I want to see how that alters the overall shape of the forearm, right? So the brachioradialis basically start from the lower third of the shaft of the humerus, just behind here, just behind the brachialis here, right? So this is the condyle, this peaking here, where this volume starts. That gives away the joint, right? That tells me where the joint is. So now the brachioradialis is a little bit higher, but it's flat here. It's a flat muscle here. It picks up volume a little bit lower when other muscle under it push it up. And we're gonna see this muscle next week when we do the back of the arm, right? Or if we have time, we do it today. We'll see, right? I don't wanna put too much stuff down. So now, this is the volume of the muscle that starts, but where does it end? Well, let's look at the diagram of the skeleton, right? So this is the skeleton, this is the humerus, right? This is the joint here like this. This is the ulna, but now the radius is going over it. You know, now they're parallel and now they are crossed, see? Now they're parallel. As I do this halfway between supination and pronation, the two at the origin are still next to each other, but now the radius is going over the ulna. Make sense, right? Makes sense. So now what happened is the muscle that before was going, I only had a piece of, see if this works, right? The muscle that was going down like this, right? The muscle was going from here to here, right? Now it does this. It starts going over it, goes across, because it follows the point of insertion. So this muscle is fixed in here, but then it has, as this rotates, the muscle has to follow that, right? It has to follow that. So I want to know where is the radius? Well, it's here, halfway in the middle of the wrist, right? Now, it has to end up here. So this is now the brachioradialis. Like this, right? And we're gonna make it now, I can see the specific volume of the brachioradialis, right? The volume of the flexors of the forearm, and this is this fossa here where you have the bicep ending, right? This portion of the bicep end, the brachioradialis beginning, the flexor right here, right? And the tendon going down like that, etc. So flexors, carpus, and fingers, right? Brachioradialis, this brachioradialis. And here now, I see another group of muscles. I see the extensors. I see the extensors that are right here, right? They are right here, on this side here. These are all, see if I can move the fingers a little bit. But anyway, trust me, these are the extensors. You're gonna see them here, right? So now I see all three muscle groups for the same price. Let me get that color pencil, if I can get it. Use a yellow. Get the yellow.
What is the text that says? It says flexor, corpus. What's the third word?
So let me go over them again, right? So I have flexor of hands and fingers here, right? The brachioradialis is a flexor of the forearm. And basically, if on this side here, I have the bone, you know, on the side of the pig, I have the bone dividing the flexor from the extensor. On this side here, I have the brachioradialis dividing the flexor from the extensors. So this is the brachioradialis is a flexor of the arm, forearm. This one here is the extensors of the fingers and hand. Make sense, right? And now you see how here I have, in this case, these two groups are parallel, running parallel. But in this case in here, I see that as the hand goes towards supination, pronation, then the muscle follows the wrist. The brachioradialis follows the wrist. And now it's not parallel anymore. You know, that's the radius, right? Which is now outside, now is in the middle. And this now follows that and makes it cuts the forearm diagonally, dividing the flexor from the extensor of the fingers. Does it answer your question?
Yes, I just didn't see that what the third word was under flexors, carpus.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Is it fingers? Yeah, okay, it answers your question, yeah.
Yeah, these are all fingers and hands, see that? Fingers and hands, but because this muscle doesn't go to the finger, stops at the end of the arm, it has action on the arm, not on the finger. So this is a flexor, but a flexor of the arm, right? Okay, now let's do one more, and we go fully, we turn the forearm completely inward, right? We go to complete pronation, right? Okay, so upper arm, right? And then forearm, right? And now maybe this time it's going to be a little bit more inward or straight, right? And I start again thinking, how long is it? How long is this? How are these two oriented? Meaning I draw them very, very structurally without spending too much time drawing them organically. I don't want to draw them organically now, right? And now I block in the hand, right, here. And now I can start with the muscle, right? So let's go with the, we started with the deltoid before, right? So with the deltoid, goes a little bit past the volume of the head, the humerus, and then it goes kind of half. You miss a lot.
Yeah, I think you hadn't started drawing in the deltoid yet, I think.
So do you want me to start over?
Sure.
I go over it. I go over this again quickly, right?
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
thank you.
thank you.
Okay, so now let's see. I blocked in first the the cylinder of the upper arm right here, like this. And then based on this, right, I can say, all right, I know that in a control position such as this one, right, I know that the forearm is going to be, assuming that is the end of the arm, this is the beginning, this should be a little bit shorter than that, right? So I make it a little bit shorter than that, right? And looks good. And then the hand now is going to be pretty much the equivalent, this spacing here, right? And I bring the hand down like that. And now, unlike what I did for the hand in supination, where the tenor, this is called tenor eminence, we're gonna see it later on, is over the palm of the hand, right? That gives me immediately the idea of the palmar view if I do that, right? In this case, instead, the back of the hand here, this is called first interosseous muscle, and this muscle goes kind of over the palmar side, right? So therefore now here I do the opposite. This portion here will go over the thumb, and immediately I feel like I am seeing the back of the hand, right? So now, so pectoralis, right? Bicep, slightly at an angle, right? Slightly at an angle like this, and then brachialis next to it, brachialis next to it. There's also a coracobrachialis, we're not going to bother with that. The tricep is going to be visible here, tricep is going to be visible here, but we're going to see this muscle at another time, right? So bicep here, and then now at this point here, what I have is this. I have. Let's start with the brachioradialis because it's easier because it's right smack in the middle. So the brachioradialis again starts from. So notice one thing, that in this movement the upper arm does not move. What moves is only the forearm, right? So I don't rotate the arm, the whole arm, but only the forearm, right? Because otherwise it would be different. So now from here, I'm starting from the, considering this is the elbow, started from the upper, sorry, to the lower third of the length of the humerus here. And then from here, the brachioradialis and it ends up here. Because now the thumb is inside, meaning the radius is inside, right? So it has to end up here, and it has to do this. Make sense? So now I draw my brachioradialis. So the brachioradialis is a flat muscle. It looks voluminous here, but only because under it there are two other muscles that push it up. The brachioradialis also becomes as a long tendon, right? Meaning the volume of the upper arm develops here. And when you are down here, the muscle taper and become tendon, long tendons. Therefore, that's why you have the upper arm, what I was saying before, is you have the upper portion of the upper arm is voluminous, and then the lower arm is thinner, right? So this is where the main body of the muscle developed, and here they start becoming tendons, right? Same thing for the leg, right? You think of the leg, if you look at the calves, the upper part of the calf, of the lower leg is chunky, is big. As you move down toward the ankle, the muscle taper and become tendon, they go toward the finger, and therefore you have this change of form in the forearm, right? So this is the brachioradialis, right? And now the brachioradialis goes across. Now here, I still have the flexors visible. Not as much, but I still have the flexor visible, right? And the flexor, remember, start just below the medial epicondyle. But then I don't see where they go because, of course, they turn around and I lose the I don't see the end of the hand, right? I mean, the palm of the hand. So now here, this is all extensor, right? Now I see the extensor, see a bunch of extensors here, like this. I'm gonna make them yellow, right? And then you're gonna go to the fingers. So the thing is this, is that when you have in the model a torsion of the hand like this, like an incomplete pronation, you're going to have a fairly good view, the separation between this group of muscles in here, the brachioradialis, actually only one muscle, and these are muscles here that come down and go down to the back of the hand, right? So this now, in terms of skeleton, will look like this. I have now humerus, ulna. It always maintain the angle, right? The carrying angle. Always had the carrying angle. But now the radius, which starts from here, it goes across. Now the bones are crossed. Okay. So in here now, if you start shading, etc., you should be able to see various specific changes of form and volume in here, like this, right? And maybe, and now you shouldn't be able to see the conduct here. So, makes sense? You want another minute to copy, guys?
What'd you say?
Yeah, okay. And then we're gonna move now to, after this, we're gonna move on to the proportion of the hand, right? A little bit more in detail, right? At any time, you can stop me, ask me to repeat. If it's clear, if it's not clear, I'll be happy to do so, right?
I think this is clear, at least it feels like now. But then when you see people, they have so differently developed muscles. I mean,
I'm sorry, I cannot hear you well. Could you repeat it?
So, I mean, this is clear, but when you see a model, some have very strong, you know, different muscle groups are very strong, and sometimes it's not. So that I always feel makes it a little difficult.
Yeah, that's a very good point. That's a very good point. So you have to learn to recognize these. That's why I was insisting with these little dots and points, because those are landmarks. Those are clues. They're going to be different from person to person, but if you know more or less where to find them, then you have access also to all the other muscle that are connected with those forms, right? But it takes some time to translate this knowledge into the practical use for figure drawing. It takes a little bit of time, right? But you're right, especially so when you have very, very lean models, it's much easier to see because the bones are more visible. But when the model is heavier, then the fat layer will probably hide some of the landmarks and also the muscular form. So it becomes a little more difficult. So it's best when you learn anatomy to use lean models because you have access to all of the structural and this aspect of the body. Later, once you become acquainted with that, then later you can use any model you want. You will be able to see it, but it's a process. It takes some time, right? It takes some time. So guys, you ready? You need more time?
I'm good.
Good.
Okay, so let's look at the hand, right? Okay, so let's look at the hand and the proportion of the hand. So, and this is something you can do. I invite you to do it as exercise using your own hand, right? I have this tool here. This is called a divider, right? This is for naval divider, for charting the maps, right? When you had the pirates and the Captain Cook and all these people, now they have the GPS. They don't use it anymore, right? But you can still find them because they're cool tools and people still navigate like that. If you don't have this, you can use a compass, but don't use the compass with the little wheel in the middle because it takes forever to get the compass without the wheel, or the divider that comes with the compass, which is a compass with 2 points, no graphite, right? So take this and then you use it. If you don't have this, you can use a pencil. You can use any stick, right? Any stick-like thing. But meaning you can, if I want to look at the portion of this, I take this and I see how long it is, right? But this is better because it's bigger, right? And more precise. So I want to look at the hand and the typical proportion of the hand, right? So I do it in mind. You copy what I do, but later try to draw your own hand using your own proportion, right? So I look at this and I see that the width of my hand here, pretty much the maximum point, is how many times is this fitting into the length? I want to find the ratio width to height, right? So I do this, and then it's about 1 to 2. Meaning the width fits twice into the height. That's great. That's easy, right? That's easy. So now what I do, I can establish the height, right? And, oh, sorry. The phone moved, right? I establish the height, and then I say, okay, now I want to find the width. I take this more or less, block it in here, right? That's the width. And this is the ratio height to width. This is called envelope, right? So what I did, I created an envelope that contains my hand. You use the envelope also to draw, when you draw figure drawing, right? But maybe I'm gonna show you the envelope of figure drawing, even though it's unrelated because we're doing a hand later on. But this is the envelope, maximum height and maximum width of your subject, right? So now, I say, okay, that was easy, right? Then now I say, okay, now more. I want to know more about my hand, right? Now I want to compare the specific segment of the hand. So I want to see how big is the palm of the hand in relation to the fingers. So I measure the palm, right? And then I bring it up and I say, oh, wow, the palm is bigger than the fingers, right? So do I need to know exactly how much? No, I can approximate it, but I see that the two are not the same measurement, right? So the palm is bigger. So if this is the midpoint, right? If the midpoint, I see that the palm is a little bit bigger than the finger. So I bring up this line in here as the base of the fingers. And now I have palm and fingers, right? And then look at the finger and I see that they taper, right? They taper. So this width in here is definitely smaller than this width in here, right? So they taper. The fingers will taper up like this, right? But also, well, let's wait to look at the base of thing. Let's look now at the other neck's big form, right? Because what I want to do, I want to privilege the dominant forms, right? The big one, right? So I look at the tenor eminence. This is tenor eminence, right? Right? Tenor eminence, and this is hypotenor eminence. So let me see if I can. So now, if I look at the base of the thumb, where it is, more or less here, right? More or less here, right? This, I mean, this is like a chicken thigh, right? Like a chicken thigh in here. And you see, this could be as seen as attached to the palm of the hand. It's a separate volume. So I start considering this because overall, it's a pretty big volume. And I want to see how it relates in terms of form and proportion to the rest of the hair. So look at this and see, okay, look, if I cut here the base, I come out with a line like this, right? And then I see that this measurement here is about halfway into the palm. And then if I look at this with a tenor end in here, right? It's incredibly easy in the sense that the tenor eminence occupies this quadrant of the hand, right? So now what I do here, I divide this in half, and my tenor eminence is going to be here, right? Plus I have this portion in here of the thumb that this is muscle, right? This is muscle that move in the thumb like this, etc. But this is bone. This is the bone. So this is the first metacarpal bone, right? So it's straight, and it's going to be coming from the corner, the lower corner on the hand here, going out like that, right? Because that's pretty much where it's joins with the carpal bones. So now here I have my base of the thumb, right? Base of the thumb here. And I have now on this side, so this is the tenor eminence. The hypotenor eminence start basically at the base of the pinky here, right? And it comes out like this. It widens out at this level here, widens up in here, and occupies, you know, at the widest, the lower quadrant in here. So that's easy, right? Blocking the pinky, which is, this is the width, right? Okay, thank God for small favors, right? So now here I do this, and then I create like a pear-shaped, elongated pear-shaped volume, which kind of comes out a little bit on this side here. And now I have tenor and hypotenor eminences. I want to connect, like let's finish with the thumb, right? Finish with the thumb. And then I want to see how long is the thumb, right? So I take the thumb, bring it close to the palm of the hand, and this is my lucky day because look at that. In my case, this measurement here is kind of similar to this measurement here. Not exactly the same, but I can guess it, right? So it's not, this is the measurement, not half, but a little bit less than half here. And I have the length of the thumb projected out, right? The first segment in here. Now I bring this close and I see that the tip of the thumb goes halfway into the first phalanx or a little bit above the base of the finger, right? So a little bit above the base of the finger. So I can guess it at up here, right? Now, it's an approximation, but as approximations are, is an informed one, right? Approximation is an informed approximation. So now I have an overall good rendering on the hand where the measurement, they might not be exactly what they are, but overall, all these parts in here, so the fingers, the palm, the tenor, hypotenor, and the thumb, are proportioned to each other. they are related proportionally in a correct way to each other, right? And then later I'm going to show you how to do this quickly, right? More practically, right? So now let's attach now the forearm to the hand. And if we look at how the forearm is connected with the hand here, I see that this side in here, right? If I keep this going, it cuts a slice, just barely, a little bit slice of the palm here. But on this side in here, if I keep this going, it cuts off a whole finger. See that? Whole finger. So meaning the hand is not positioned centrally on the forearm, but off center. Off center. So when I do this, right, I see that this portion sticks out so much more than this portion here, right? So also another thing, notice this, I have my hand straight like this, I put the pencil in here, right? Like this. And if I close the hand, the pencil is at an angle. It's diagonal. It's not straight, right? So meaning also the fingers are going to be, the block of the fingers is going to be at an angle, right? Overall. So see that? They are at an angle like this. See that? The hand is straight, but when I close it, magically the whole thing becomes angled like that, right? So good to know, good to know. Now, let's find out about the fingers. So now, let me block in the forearm first. So this line here tapering, slice a little bit of the hypotenor eminence, and it's here, right? But this portion here will slice whole finger off, which means half of this lateral half, like a quarter of total width, right? A quarter of total width of the hand here, right? So the hand is offset like that, right? So now let's block in the fingers, and we see that we're gonna start with the base of the finger. So if I look at the base of the finger, I see which one is the highest. This, right? This is the highest. Because then there's a curve, right? There's a curve. So look at this thing now. The curve is this, that this is the highest, this is the lowest point, and this is intermediate. It's not a regular curve. So meaning it's not a curve, symmetrical curve like this, right? Which if I cut it, it's symmetrical. But it has a short side peak and then longer side lower. It's an asymmetrical curve like that, right? So this brings out an interesting aspect of human body where within the single form, you do not have symmetries. So if I take a person cut in half, yeah, I have right and left, they're symmetrical. But if I take the hand and cut it in half, there's no symmetry in the hand. If I take a finger and cut it in half, there's no symmetry in the hand. Look how this kind of pokes out this more, etc. There's no symmetry within the single forms of the body. That's very interesting, right? Plus, we have these curves. These curves in here are typical of the curves of the body. They are also asymmetrical. So let's look at this, right? This form here. This curve in here has a peak that is lower here. It's not at the center, right? So we can discuss about this asymmetric aspect more as we proceed with them in the month, right? I had the fingers coming up like this. So now I've seen that. That's the highest point, right? They established in the beginning. That is the lowest point, right? And that's intermediate point. So 1, 2, 3, right? Now I kind of redraw my tenor and hypotenor, but I want this to be lower. The middle finger, right, takes, I start with the middle finger because the longest, and once I establish the maximum length of the finger in this case, then I can adjust the other ones, make them proportionate to this, right? So now I look at my hand and I see which one is the second longest finger. And you're gonna have two possibilities, either this or this, the second one. In men, this tends to be the second longest. In women, often, not always, this is the second longest. Whichever way, you want to see which finger is the longest, right? And then in my case, it's this one. So what I'm gonna do, I'm going to block. So I want to reassure you, if you are a woman and your second longest finger is this, that doesn't make you less of a woman, right? But I have to reassure my male student when they say, hey, I had the fingers of a woman. It's no, it's statistic. It doesn't mean that you're a lesser man or a lesser woman. It's, but undergrad tend to be kind of, hey, wait, I'm a man, right? Oh, I'm a woman, right? No, this doesn't have anything to do, it's a statistic, right? Tend to be. So I got to reassure you too, guys. I don't know, right? If you feel offended, right? So, but this one here is now close to the top, right here. And come down with this segment here like this. The index is going to be slightly shorter, just the tip sliced off here, right? And then the pinky is a whole phalanx shorter. See that? It's a whole phalanx shorter than the next finger. So I approximate it, bring it here, right? And the pinky is a whole phalanx shorter. So now, this can help me in establishing also the length of the specific segment, right, of the hand. So now, 1, 2, 3, right? These are kind of the same from the palmar view, and this is shorter, right? Let me see. And this is still a little bit longer, right? So one is longer, one is a little bit shorter, and one is the shortest, right? This makes sense with that progressive shortening of the segments of the limbs as they move away from the center, right? So we have a upper arm the longest, forearm the second, the hand is the third. Within the hand, this is bigger, this is slightly smaller, and then this is bigger, slightly smaller, slightly smaller. The progressive shortening of the segment of the hand as they move away from the center, right? So now, once I establish these, I can say, okay, you know what, most likely, if this follows reasoning, this is going to be slightly shorter than that, right? And this slightly shorter than that. So, okay, here and here. And now I can do the same thing here. It's going to be the same thing, right? So this is slightly shorter than that, and this slightly shorter than that, right? So now from here, I go a little bit lower, from here a little bit lower, and then this is the same level, right? Here, this is the same level, so this is shorter. Same level here, and this is halfway. So now, in theory, I have these segments aligned in such a way where they create some sort of coherence, right, between the various segments. There's some sort of aesthetics. Now, again, keep in mind, this is not the way you're going to draw, but it's the way you analyze the body, right? And the pragmatic way of analyzing the body, we can discuss that too, right? We can discuss that too later on. But now we need to see the proportion. So now, how do I use, actually, let's look at the back of the hand first, and then I'll show you how to use this proportion for a more quick approach to drawing the hand, right? But again, as an exercise, draw your hand from a dorsal view like this and from the palmar view, right? Dorsal view and palmar view, right? Just to practice. So you start measuring these typical proportions, right? So now, you guys ready? You need some more time?
I have a question. So these obviously differ from person to person. How much do they differ?
Could you repeat that, Rita? I don't hear you very well.
So how much these things differ between people? This proportion.
Not much. I mean, but this is just statistic measurement, right? But that's why I want you to look at your own hand.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is typically, you're not going to have the fingers longer than the palm. Make sense?
Yeah.
And typically, this finger is always the same. I mean, it's the longest. And this, the wrist, is always positioned off center. So now, there's no formula that tells you exactly the universal measure because people come in all shapes and sizes. But overall, everybody has these proportions in terms of this is bigger and this is slightly smaller. Now, some people might have the palm, my palm is kind of square, see that? Kind of square, kind of rectangular shape. People might have a little bit more taper, right? Think of piano player, my daughter, she played the piano, she got this long hands, right? More tapered, etc. And the fingers more elongated, but the fingers from the palmar view are not going to be longer than the palm. Right? So instead of having, let's say, so this is a good question, Rita. Thank you for this question. Because I don't want you to think of these as formula that you use instead of observing. These are formula that help you to observe, right? It's the other way around. So so a palm could be square like that, right? And then the fingers could be tapering like that. Or you could have a palm that somehow is a little bit more elongated, right? And the palm, the fingers are still elongated, meaning that the ratio between width and height is not exactly 1:2, but it could be a little bit the width fits into the length, maybe 2 and a little bit, right? 2 and a little bit. So meaning if the hand is more elongated. But you're not going to have a hand that has 1 to 3, right? The width is not going to fit 3 times into the height. There's going to be a minimal variation between that, right? So that's why I invite you to do this, because you see how much your hand, you see the specific characteristic of your hand, but mostly you're going to use this a method to look at them by comparing proportion to each other, right? Which you're going to do also when you do the body. Whenever you draw the body of the figure, think of this, all right? I block in, I'm doing figure drawing, right? Out of my head, right? I'm looking at my model and I see, I block in the head, right? Block in the head of the model. And I say, okay, that's the guy. I got it. That's nice. Now I'm blocking the torso, right? And I look at the torso and then I say, okay, hips now, hips, right? Here. I'm thinking, segment proportion, how do I know? Well, typically, and I'm talking typically, the head is 1, the space between the chin and the hips is 2, and between the top of the hips and the end of the hips is 1. So the torso and the head together are equivalent to 4 heads. But it could be also that it's 3 3/4, right? Depending on the person.
Yeah,
but
I understand that, yeah.
Overall, that is pretty much the rule. So, which means also that the legs will abide to this general proportion relationship. The pubic bone is considered to be the center of the figure, right? And the pubic bone is about 1/4 of the head above from the bottom of the pelvis. So, if this is the center of the figure, it means that I take this, bring it down here. Actually, and I bring it down here, right? That's where the legs end. So now I have the figure right here with the legs here that are going to be fairly proportioned to the whole figure. But very often the legs are a little bit longer than the upper part, right? Not always, but often the legs are a bit longer. So these are typical proportion. But if you look at different ethnic groups, right? This is the Mediterranean. They tend to be 1 to 7.5, 1 to 8, right? But if you then look at, let's say, if you look at the sub-Saharan population, African population, the rib cage in proportion to the leg is much smaller. They're much longer femurs. That's why you have sprinters, right? Runners that are African American or African origin, because the legs are much longer in a certain area of Africa. Then the rib cage, the toes tend to be smaller, right? Or you have the same thing also in Northern Europe. You know, the northern population, like the Dutch, German, tend to be tall, very tall people, and the legs are proportionally longer than a little bit longer than the torso. But if you keep going north, if you go to, let's say, the Inuit, they're gonna have shorter legs, because the legs, when they're very long, they disperse heat like the limbs, right? The heat has to be concentrated in the core and organs. Therefore, you cannot have limbs that are also too long. Also, but you don't run very fast in a frozen tundra, right? You don't run really fast, so you don't need long legs, and so on. So, but overall, this is a good starting point. It's the typical. It was codified by the classical Greek and Roman Mediterranean population. But then from here, you can see the variation of your model based on that. You look at your model and say, hey, you know what? My model had to, first for segment is not 4, it's 3 3/4, or 4 1/4, a little bit more. And the legs are a little bit longer. But you have a parameter, makes sense? You have a method that you can apply to your model and see the variation of this, the typical, of the specific in relation to the typical. So this is the typical, right? Typical humans are like that, right? Being viable creature, the body has to be built in a certain way. But then when I look at the specific, I want to see how the specific varied in relation to the typical, right? So, for example, one head down is where the nipples are. One head down, the third head down, is where the umbilicus is. Another head is where the end of the pelvis is. But my model can have one head down, instead of nipple being one head down, are a little bit higher or a little bit lower. But they're gonna be about here or here. They're not gonna be here in here. You know what I'm saying? They're gonna be in this area here. That is still statistic. The umbilicus should be the third head down. The umbilicus is going to be here, or it's going to be here, or it's going to be here. But it's not going to be here, or it's not going to be here. Make sense? Make sense?
Yes, makes sense. And I understand about that, about body, but I was kind of wondering if it is the same thing with the hand, and
Yeah,
it's about the same thing.
Yeah, it's about the same thing, meaning I'm going to have now, this my hand, right? But then another percent could be a little bit narrower here, right?
Yeah, I understand.
You know, except so that's why I want you to then measure your hand, but then see your specific characteristics. So you move from the typical to the specific, right? But that's the method. This is the method.
Okay.
Now let's look at the what is it? But look at the back of the hand now, right? Back of the hand, right? So look at the back of the hand, and I see that I measure the wrist, right? The wrist here, and the knuckles right here. And now what I do, I take this measurement here, and I move it up, and I see that now it's the opposite. Now the fingers are longer than the palm. How is that possible? It's because when I measure the finger from the palm, I measure from here. But when I measure from, see right here, right? See where the knuckle is? The knuckle is here. So the fingers, but this is then down at an angle. See that this is coming down at an angle, right? So the fingers from the back of the hand will look longer than the finger from the palm. But will look, they appear to be, but the true length of the finger would be this, because the finger starts here. So this introduces the concept of relativity. It's relative. If I look, think of this, think of the body, right? Think of the body. Now we have a rib cage here like this, right? And the pelvis down like this, right? Iliac crest, and the leg. This is the pubic bone, lower quarter. This is the iliac spine, you know. So as is, right? Iliac spine, pubic bone here, and the leg will start about halfway between the anterior superior spine and the pubic bone here, or halfway the height of the pelvis right here. So now, this is the genitals are going to be here, right, at this level here, and the legs start down like this. That's the knee, and this is the lower leg, and that's the foot, right? So now I look at the leg from the front. It starts from here. That's where you see the fold of the leg. But from the back, the leg starts from here. Meaning, I have about half a head of difference from the back and the front. Now, the leg appears to be shorter from the back than from the front, because from the back, I had the gluteus going lower, then the muscle here, the abdomen, that are not going over the leg. So the bone per se is always the same length. The femur is here. The femur starts here. That's the femur, right? So the femur starts here. But from the back, it appears like the leg is shorter because the gluteus goes lower, and therefore I had to consider this when I look at the external figure in relation to the skeleton. Same thing for the hand. From this side in here, the hand, the palm looks bigger than the fingers, but from the back, the fingers are bigger than the palm. Is that too confusing?
No,
What
that
I'm
makes
saying
great
is,
sense.
what I'm saying is there's also the concept of relativity, right? Relativity, once we add the measurement, we add the variables, then we have to consider those. But that was make the body so incredibly beautiful and complex and interesting to copy and draw, right? So now another thing that you want to consider is this, that this is not the base of the fingers, right? This is the base of the fingers here. That if you try to follow, to bend the finger really bends here. Right? That's the true base of the finger. But I don't see it from I mean, this, we can also call this the base of the finger, but it's the beginning of the finger is not here, is here, is down here. Makes sense? That's also why from the palmar view, the fingers look a little bit shorter than from the dorsal view, because dorsal view I started from here, right? Makes sense? So now, I want to, oh, sorry, you still copying?
I'm good.
So let's see how we can use this method pragmatically, right? That's called Machiavelli, and ask him about pragmatism, right? Okay, so now let's see the sequence. I'm going to do a sequence based on these proportions that I have discuss with you now, right? So I look at, and this is going to be the easy pose. We want to start with an easy pose, and then eventually move on to more complex poses, but the method is the same, right? So I look at my hand and say, okay, you know what? I look at this and I see that in this case in here, the ratio width to height, the height is a little bit longer than the width. So instead of drawing a square, I could draw a block a sphere like this, right? And then maybe make the elongated circle, because this side is slightly longer than this side is here. Makes sense, right? It's not, meaning it's not the square, but it's a rectangle, just barely rectangle. Now, sorry, I'm gonna use a different pencil. So now I have the palm, right? The palm. Then I look at my hand and I say, okay, the fingers are a little bit shorter than this measurement in here. So let's block the finger, right? I decide where the middle finger is, and then see how long should it be. Well, it should be a little bit less than the length of the palm, and that looks good here, right? Okay, I like that. This is the length, right? And then I say, okay, tenon, hypotenon. What is this? Okay, it's about this quadrant, and this is the other quadrant here, right? And this is now, maybe it's at an angle like that, but I want to have this portion here more prominent, right? Sticking out more, even if my hand is slightly turned, right? That's gonna be like the queen, right? The queen now waving goodbye, right? That's the tenon eminence, hypotenon eminence here. And then I know that the thumb, the total length of the thumb is how much? Well, I look at it, I know it should get to here, right? It should get to here from here. So it's about this, the length of the thumb is this. So I know that my thumb is going to go out to that. And if I bring it in, I'm going to have the right proportional relationship, right? So now I will look at the fingers, and I can say, okay, maybe the fingers are a little bit turned like that, right? So, all right, this one though, I can, if I use them like this, I know what to do. I know what to do in the sense that, sorry, I want to show you something else. How many drawings did I do? I'm gonna be back a second. So that this is the thing. I create a pattern like this: long, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, right? Like that. So it's got the zigzag pattern like that. It's a pattern. If it's there, fine. But if your second finger is this, you don't have that pattern, right? But in here, I look at this and I say, you know what? I don't want the fingers to be stuck up like that, and I don't care about the pattern, but I see that maybe, right, maybe if I do this, right, I see that, and I'm gonna twist my hand like that, right? If I see this is the highest, right, up here, right? And this is slightly lower, so I find now this, and from here, look at that, they line up on a straight line, right, from this, and I go out here, and these all end up here, and this one is coming in actually, right? Coming in like this. But it just, the top of this is not above that, right? So this meaning this is gonna be more at an angle, right? This is going to be, that's the pinky, right? The pinky is gonna be here, right? This finger in here is going to be in between this and the pinky here, right? And it's bent, and that is now the index, not the middle finger, and that is the index, right? So now I can block in quickly. You see what I'm saying? I block in quickly the proportions, the basic proportion of the hand, and start measuring more specifically, right? So again, blocking the palm. Once you have this, you can find the measure of the fingers and the position of tenor, hypotenor, and the rest. Make sense, right? So this would be a more pragmatic approach to using the proportion I told you before. But you see how even if it's like a drawing that took me like probably 5 seconds to do, 10, let's say 10, right? Every mark that I make is control. I mean, it represents some concept, some proportional relationship. Makes sense? I'm not imitating. It's not imitation. I'm not looking at the line and say, oh my God, finger, when does it stop? Okay, here now, fingers is here, and this is the palm, right? It's not like that. This is just the measuring phase. If the measuring phase works and it's based on informed lines, right? If this works, then you can go back and do that. You can go and say, okay, this is here, right? This is the segment of the phalanx. This is the other segment of the phalanx right here. And this is going to be this chunky portion here, right, with the fold, and this moves out. This is the base of the thumb with the folds like that. This is the straight portion of the bone. This is the base of the tendon eminence. This is of the tendons, right? So meaning you're going to draw this organically, very quickly, but your drawing is based on sound anatomical and structural measurement, right? That's what I was telling you before. This is not the way you draw. This is the way you analyze the body. This is the way you draw using the analysis of the body, right? You don't need to visualize it. Make sense?
Yes.
So, so far we have 2 homework. I'm gonna give you 1 more, and then I'll leave it up to you if you want to extra. But I would do this: draw first your hand in a controlled pose, like first this way, then this way. So we see the difference between the dorsal view and the palmar view, right? If you have the book, let me see, what page is that? Right. I put a lot of these information on in the book, right? So the chapter on the hands is chapter 6, 237, and you find a lot of these concepts in the book. The muscle, I wouldn't worry about the muscle now because it's maybe too much, right? But what you have to do, I would like you to copy the hand this way, just like that, right? And then I don't have the palmar view, and then this way. Then after that, if you have time, if you're patient, try to copy your hand holding an object, small object, right? Small object like this, right? Because I know you're not gonna do it, but a couple of times I told my undergrad, copy your hand holding an object. And you know what they did? They did this. They put a thing on top of the hand and they copied only this, the forearm, so they avoided to copy in the hand, right? So I know you're not gonna do it, but if you wanna hold an object, try to hold an object maybe smaller, like this, right? Like this, drawing like this, because you start having to deal with all these mechanics of the hand, how the hand is articulated and joined. We're gonna work on this more to kind of study the hand from different point of view. But for now, just 1, 2, and then holding an object as a way of experimenting with the the hand in a more complex position, right? So let's finish with the details of the hand, right? So the fingers. So typically the fingers are going to be, we can describe them as cylinders, right? So I would have a little cylinder here, and now I know that this cylinder here, this is the proximal, the one close to the hand. The hand is here, right? The next cylinder is going to be slightly shorter, right? And then the third, even shorter, right? Like that. So I have, you know, kind of this proportional relationship, right? Which you can also check in your finger. And note one thing, and this is true, I think, for everybody, right? But again, measure your hand. I measure this, right? The proximal phalanx, right? And I see that the length of the proximal phalanx is equal to the length of the distal phalanxes, the medial and distal phalanxes. They have the same, with approximation, they have the same measurement, right? So maybe check in your hand too, but you'll see that pretty much you have the same proportion, right? In each finger, you have the same proportion, right? So also, this is the longest, right? This is the second longest, and this is the shortest. Long, medium, short. Make sense? So these are constants, meaning when you draw your hand, you already know that. You're not copying the outline. You have in your head the structure of the hand that guides you, right? So now, going back to the cylinder, I have my finger here, right? Like this, the nail is here. And then I notice that if I notice careful look at the fingers here, you see how at least this portion here are really not circle. They're not little cylinder. They have somehow a flatter side. See, the side is a little bit flatter. So instead of cylinders, I might want to think of this, right? A little bit squarer, like a little bit squarer, not completely round. So now I have this squarish section, like rounded but squarish section, which is more, okay. And then I repeat the whole thing, right? Or simply modify this, right? I simply modify this, right? And that looks more like more organic. This is more like metallic, very idealized. But as I move toward the organic form, I want to start. Basically, this gave me just a dimension. This instead start giving a little bit. I start adding at the basic structure more and more organic information. But all the organic information I put here is going to be okay because the essential structure is correct. Make sense? So I'm not going to do that. I know that I draw these in their correct proportional relationship to each other. Therefore, now I can invest time on this. You know, sometimes you start drawing. The detail is beautiful, but then the whole thing falls apart because maybe the legs are too long or too short, or the nose is too long or too much to the right. First, you block in the structure, the proportional relationship. That's the measuring phase. Once the measuring phase is resolved, then you move on to the more organic, realistic phase. So now I look at my finger and I see, okay, one thing is this, is that I have here, the sides tend to be a little bit squarish, right? Flatter, in this case, a little bit flatter, the finger a little bit flatter, a little bit squarish in here. Then I noticed that at the joints, there's a swelling. See that here and here, right? So the bone are like this, the bone like this. This is a phalanx, right? And these are the extremity of the phalanxes, right? Like that. And when the two come together, there is a swelling here. But there's cartilage here, there's a surface that needs to articulate, so you need more cartilage. Like for the femur, like the knees are bulkier because you need more cartilage, and so on, right? So there are swellings here and here. Therefore, in my finger, I want to think that in here I have some sort of sphere inside here and inside here, which makes the finger not straight, but swelling here, right? And then swelling in here, and so on. So now this kind of overlapping that, this kind of overlapping that, right? And see how we start getting, moving away from a tubes, yeah, metal tube, and more like flesh and bone. One more thing is that I have here these, the skin bunches up, right? Bunches up because when it stretches, and then there's now a lot of skin, and then bunches up. We create this little volume here. So now I have here a little bit of volume here, and these are like buttons. Imagine buttons on top of the fingers where the skin bunches up. So now these are going to be oriented perpendicularly to the length of the finger, but the knuckle is oriented with the length of the finger, like that, right? So so then eventually you can block in these more organically, copy. Now you need your model more and more, right? Because now you get after details. But the idea is this, right? The idea is this, that you're going to subdivide your drawing approach in different phases. One is the measurement. The measurement of your subject has no aesthetics involved. Meaning, yeah, the aesthetics is going to be inherent. Because the finger, the hand can be beautifully narrative, but I'm not concerned about that. I want to know how big is this, right? In relation to this, right? In relation to the rest, right? And when I do this working here, right? I try to draw as light as possible. In fact, just barely visible. I cannot make it barely visible now because you wouldn't see it, but this is my way of thinking, right? Way of thinking, where is, how is this oriented? Maybe the forearm is here, right? So then I change it, the little bump. How big is this in relation to the fingers? How are the knuckle lining up? How are the fingers bent, right? What is this? Is it here? Is it more open? Is it here, right? Like that. And if you don't like it, you just take it out, draw it again, right? But this is the measuring phase. You don't worry about the aesthetics. You want to know how wide, how high, how deep. That's it, right? What's the angle of this? If this works, right? If you're done a drawing light enough, you can start drawing on top of it, and that will this will disappear. Will be incorporated in the drawing. If not, if you have too many searching lines, you want to lighten it up a little bit. But now you have a scaffolding. This scaffolding in here is proportional relationship and the structural characteristic of your hand. So if these are okay, then what you do this. You start locking in the organic aspect. Say, okay, that's the end of the ulna, and this is not straight. It kind of goes a little bit bumping here. This from here comes down like this, right? And then this goes disappear under because these are the flexors that go under the forearm like that. And this is the radius. And from here, I have now the flat portion of the thumb, right? The back of the hand in here is slightly rounded. The peak of the form is going to be here at the middle finger, right? And from here, I have the middle finger going out like this, going down like that, going down like that. Is it the right length in relation to the rest? Yes, I measure this, so it's fine, right? I know now the ring finger And this, instead of being like this, I change my mind. I want to make it like that, right? And then the pinky here, I just barely see it because the form turns and I see it here. And then now I have this other finger here, right? The index. You know what I'm saying, right? You know what I'm saying? So now, as you do this, we go over your scaffolding with these lines here. The previous lines, number one, they solved a lot of problem for you because you know exactly how the fingers should the length of the finger should be, right? And the other one, you can, as you draw, you can change your mind a little bit and adapt it, and your hand will be guided by all the proportions you already established. You don't need to worry about them anymore, right? Or you can change it. You can, if you don't like it, you can change it because you're saying, oh, you know what? I thought it was a good idea to put the fingers like that, but now maybe I want to put the pinky here like this, right? Like that. And then you change your pinky. But it is going to be a plausible measurement that is still part of the organic structure of the hand. The hand is still a viable organ. Is not the hand of an orangutan. It's a human hand, right? Makes sense. So this is the how you draw. Again, how you analyze the form I showed you before, but this is how you draw it. This is how you draw it. You still think in these structural methods, but the hand is not flat or you know, front or back anymore, but still the proportion can be appreciated as the same. Can be appreciated the same, right? So let me think. I want to show you something else. So in the here in the book, I have these. What is it? So these are very very good ways of practicing the proportion of the hand, right? Because you see you visualize all the different segments, and it's also easier to put the hand in perspective like that because you think of it three-dimensionally. So, in other words, I draw a hand.
So as far as the homework, so you gave the three different ways to draw your one hand. Was there some other homework that I missed?
No, that's just the three. Just those three. If you want, I give you now some other example if you have time to do them, and you could draw the hand now in this way. So, but basically, the homework so far are your hand like this, measure your proportion. Your hand like this, measure your proportion, and your hand holding an object like this.
Yeah. Okay.
So let's do this. Let's do this. This is thank you for this because I want to make this a little bit easier, right? So holding like this, instead of drawing your hand realistically, draw it in blocks. Now I'm going to show you. Oh, I have a. This is an example, right? So draw it first, like this, in blocks. And if you have time, you can also do this. But draw it as if you were looking at. Let me see if I have another one. I have another hand that shows the blocks, right? The blocks.
Yeah, I understand.
We'll have an occasion to draw more of these, right? But,
So then, what is the role of canvas?
I'm sorry?
So what is the role of the canvas program? Do you want us to put something on canvas on, or what's the?
You put them in on discussion. When you are done with the work, right? You post your homework on Canvas on discussions.
Okay, because I noticed that I think they were on the module, but I'll take a look. But under discussion.
Under discussion, yeah, yes, discussion. So that I usually put
for each week.
I really cannot hear you very well. You sound very distant.
So for each, I don't know what to do. For each week, there is a discussion. So that's where you post things.
Yes. So each week I give you the assignments, and then you post them. I mean, you don't have to, right? It's not for credit, but you know, that's how you learn more, right? That's how you learn more. So so you post it on there, and then I'll give you the I'll give you my critiques on it, right? So I'll tell you that's okay, should be bigger, should be smaller, etc., right? So, but these are all examples of hands here.
So let me just say that when I look at the canvas, there is a week one lesson, and then under it, it says project.
So, because then you can also watch lessons.
I already looked, but then it seems like you put your work on the project. And let me look at the discussion. I'm asking because different teachers seem to be doing it a little differently with Canvas. So,
yeah, I think each teacher is different because the material is going to be different. So the way they teach.
But like I see that you have week one lessons, week one lessons 2, and then there is something called, there's a tab called project, and it seems that that's where you put what you do.
I don't think I put anything project, but
because I already posted something there.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
But that's why I'm asking, because every class seems to have a different place where you post things.
Yeah, I've been always having the student post them in discussion, because that way the whole class can see it, and then we can learn from each other. So, but if you post what you want, right? It doesn't matter, provided you let me know. Maybe you send me an email and tell me I posted in here, posted in there. But if you post it in discussions, that's where usually everybody posts stuff. So discussion is what I use.
Okay, I'm now seeing that when I post something on the project, it actually goes on the discussions as well. Okay, all right, thank you.
It's easier. So, but basically, guys, see what I'm doing here is the same sequence, right? The same sequence in here. So I start with the block of the hand, right? Like that, right? And then now that I have the relative size of the palm, which is ratio height to width, I know how to position the base of the thumb, which in this case comes in. See, that comes in. Now I look at this, not just following the line, the outline, but following, imagining the volume, right? And then I start attaching the fingers to it. So now, what is this finger? What is that finger, etc.? How do they bend? When I bend my fingers in here like this, right? Then I see that how low is this in relation to the palm of the hand, right? So I'm going to really, if this is the base of the finger, right? Actually, this is not like that. If this base of the finger, this is very just a little bit lower than the base of the finger, right? Just a little lower than the base of the finger. So anytime I make a mark, I want to relate it to the mark that I already made, right? So 1, right, 2, and then the object like that. from here, if I want, I can develop this further, right? And get, this is the same thing, but it doesn't have all these little intermediate passages I put in here. So from here, you keep developing it and you could end up with a realistic hand, right? But this is much easier to draw. It's much, much easier to draw because you're not distracted by the organic aspect of the hand, right? You're not gonna be distracted by that, right? So let me see if I can block in a quick example with the, but I think you have a good idea now of what you have to do, right, guys?
I got a little lost. You were saying you want us to do the block form for the hand shape. Was that?
The third one, when you, yeah, so so again, the two like this, copy your hand as is. Just practice, starting, doing the sequence that I showed you before, right? So start with this, right? See how big is this in relation to the fingers right here. And then see where is this, right? Where is this? Measuring ratio height to width, right? The sequence that I showed you before, right? And then the hand like that. And you do it this way and this way, measuring this in relation to this, for example, right? Measuring what is this in relation to the palm, etc. So it's basically the steps that I showed you earlier on today, right? The third drawing instead, draw it as blocks, meaning holding an object, right? And we start to break it down this in blocks. So you look at the palm and say, oh, look, right? It's a block like this, right? Like this. This is the section here, right? And then this comes down like this, right? And this goes down like that. And I say, I cut it here because later I'm gonna attach this onto the block. So I separate the two forms. So this is the palm, right? And this is gonna be maybe shaded, right? And now here, I can block in this, right? So here, and then this finger here, now the fingers come out maybe one like this, one like this, one like, and one like that. Now I block in the cylinders of the fingers, right? Make sense?
Yes, yes, thank you.
Like that. Because that way you practice conceptualizing the hand. So the idea is I want you to move away from imitation, where you copy something and immediately start already drawing the organic form, meaning you start drawing a finger like this with a little bump, a little hair on the hand, the little wrinkles, right? You get into the detail right away, you lose the whole thing. That way you maintain this harmony that comes from all the various parts coming together. This is a holistic approach that is focused on that it captures the inherent structure and aesthetics of the body, right? It's a method that was developed in the Renaissance and invented in the Renaissance and developed since, right? So was part of the academic training and until the modernist revolution, So any question? Is that clear? Because I think we covered quite a lot.
Thank you.
You got it, right? You got it?
Yeah, got it.
Very
Thank you.
clear.
Okay. So so I'll see you in a week and post your works, right? Post your works so I can help you out with if you have any question and see how you do it, etc. And think of this. Don't worry about aesthetics. Aesthetic will happen, right? Aesthetic will happen, meaning now you just think that what you're trying to do is understand how to look at the world, how to look at the hand, how to analyze that and be critical, develop a critical a conceptual approach to the way you look at things. Don't just record what you see. Break it down, analyze it, and then record your analysis, your choices, right? All right, guys. I'll see you next week then.
Thanks very much.
Thank
That's
you.
great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
You're
Yeah.
very welcome. You're very welcome. My pleasure.
Thanks.